Well, Queen City News is your home of the Carolina Panthers, and the black and blue came up short Saturday afternoon against the Bucks, but they still have a chance at the playoffs, and it all comes down to a game between the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. Joining us now is Carolina Sports Live's Gabe McDonald from downtown Tampa Bay to talk about what happened on the field. Gabe, it's a little foggy there, which is sort of what Carolina's playoff picture looks like, but hopefully it's going to clear up a little more today and they still make it to the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely, Will. Still a fighting chance for this team to get into the postseason. And like you mentioned, it all comes down to a game coming up in a matter of hours down there in Atlanta, another divisional matchup when you think about the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, if the Falcons win, then the Panthers would be able to get into the playoffs with an 8-9 record because they would win the tiebreaker with them, Tampa, and Atlanta all having 8-9 records. Now, if the Saints win or if the game ends in a tie, you know, NFL games can end in a tie, then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would get in after yesterday's win over the Panthers. And it was really one of those games where the Panthers also had a lot of missed opportunities, but also there were a lot of questionable calls against them that were really called out only on the broadcast, but also by a lot of fans, former Panthers as well. You had offensive pass interference on Teterow and McMillan that looked like it shouldn't have been called. Obviously, he was very vocal about that after the game. Even a very phantom defensive pass interference call on one Nick Scott that allowed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get into field goal range and ultimately take a 2-score lead. He just simply, him and K. Dotton, their feet got tangled up, didn't really make any contact there when the Buccaneers were able to get that field goal and take a 9-point lead. And of course, the flea flicker. That's going to be one of the main things that a lot of people talking about. Dave Canales calling that after they converted their first third down of the game. They tried to flea flicker there in the red zone. Rico Dowdle slipped, tried to pitch the ball back to Bryce Young, ultimately ended up in the hands of Levante David. And that was really one of the missed opportunities that a lot of people are going to look at if this ends up being the last game that the Panthers do play this season, Will.
Hey, Gabe, let me ask you this because, I mean, a lot of people are talking about that flea flicker. They're down there, they're close, they could get 3. What did Canales say about that specific call? I mean, was there something he had seen, or, I mean, was this just something he felt that they should go with?
I mean, Dave Canales defended the call. I mean, he told us after the press conference, after the game in the press conference, it was an aggressive call. He saw the look that he really liked. They were running a lot of man, and he thought that he had a good look on that play. Now, he said it was a bit of an aggressive call. When you think about the Panthers that were struggling on third down throughout the game, they converted their first one of the game prior to that call. In the red zone, only trailing by about 9 points, I think you'd probably want to take a safer call, go to the ground game, even though the ground game really was not, anything going yesterday. Only averaged 1.4 yards per carry, so you probably would have liked to have seen a safer play call, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers really giving them a lot of different looks, and Dave Canales decided to go with that call, and Rico Dowdle talked about it after the game that he simply slipped there, even after changing his cleats early in the game, after slipping on one of the first couple of carries, ended up changing the 7 studs, didn't really make much of a difference with the rain yesterday, and definitely a poor execution there by the offense, and obviously a questionable call that Dave Canales ultimately defended after the game too.
Yeah, let's hit on one other thing you had talked about, and that was the officiating. Even former Panther Jonathan Stewart posted a picture of a ref with 3 Tampa Bay Buccaneer patches on his uniform and everything else. Did that really make the team down after the game? Were they down after the game after that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's really, tough when you also not only have to beat the opponent on the field, but also have to deal with some pretty rough calls, too. I mean, even think about some early in the game as well. There really wasn't a lot going Carolina's way. Obviously, you look at that pass interference on Nick Scott that ultimately let them get into field goal range and go up 9 points. And even Teterow and McMillan, I mean, you look at the contact, really you look at the replay, the ref threw the flag after the catch was already made. Teterow and McMillan got about a 30-yard gain on that play. The referee was back on the corner on the Panthers sideline, didn't really necessarily see the contact right off the line, and obviously that's one of those calls that it could go either way, and unfortunately didn't go the Panthers' way. But definitely, you look at the officiating, that's going to be something that a lot of people talk about. Even another one as well, when they ruled it a backwards pass, when it looked like it was a forward pass on a screenplay that Bryce Young was trying to throw to Rico Dowdle, that ultimately resulted in the loss of down to the Panthers getting way behind the chains on that drive, and that was really just a snowball effect from what we saw yesterday.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.